Hi, this is Scott Kuttner with the City of Santa Ana, and I just wanted to welcome you to our Santa Ana General Plan Community Outreach Roundtable discussion tonight on Monday evening, the 21st of December at 5 p.m. We'll be starting in just a couple of minutes. Thank you so much for joining us. I see we've got Julie Castro Cardenas, our friend, on the line, and Giselle Enriquez is connecting. We've got a number of community members as well joining us. Thank you all for dropping in during this really busy holiday season. Once again, for those of you who are just joining us, my name is Scott Kuttner. I'm with the City of Santa Ana. And you have joined the Santa Ana General Plan Community Outreach Roundtable discussion. Today is Monday, December 21st at 5 p.m. We'll be starting our meeting in just a couple of minutes here, so please just stand by. Thank you so much.
Hi, Scott. Hi, everyone.
Hi, how are you?
Good, thank you.
I'm so glad you're here tonight. Thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you for the invite.
How you doing, Adolfo?
I'm good. Busy at work and changes. You know, the county just sent us home to do. I'm telecommuting, so
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
now the offices, as you know, they close. The social services offices.
Yes.
Yeah, we close. So yeah, but we're working from home. So
Okay.
and busy as always. You know.
Adolfo, do you work out of the same office as Jose Leal?
Who? Jose?
Oh, he's like one of our colleagues, someone that we work with also, who I think works, I know it's a huge agency, so.
Yeah, I work at the office on Grand, actually.
Oh, I see.
Yeah,
Okay.
I've been there for 27 years next January.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you
Yeah.
so much. That's
No,
great.
thank you. And I was a couple months. I was transferred temporarily to the Cyprus office. Cyprus and it's Catella and um, Bellevue.
I see.
Yeah, near Cyprus College. Yeah, all the way over there. So I actually those 2 months I had to drive every day over there.
Well, that's so much nicer that you're closer. Plus, you're kind of you're working with our community members, which is awesome.
Yes, yeah. We're trying to do as much as we can with referrals for housing. Same with the city, as you know, we have a housing support program as well.
Yes.
The homeless assistance programs, either temporary homeless or permanent homeless assistance programs. Usually it's a once in a lifetime, but we are making exemptions, so
Okay.
we can reapprove cases within the year now.
That's awesome. It just, excuse me, just for 1 second, I just want to make a quick announcement. Hi, this is Scott Kuttner with the City of Santa Ana, and thank you for joining us for the Santa Ana General Plan Community Outreach Roundtable. Today is Monday, December 21st, 2020 at 5 p.m. We're going to be starting our meeting in just a couple of minutes. We have additional participants who are joining us. We promise to make really good use of your time tonight, though. So thank you. Thank you very much. At this time, I just want to check in with our colleagues, Melanie McCann. Melanie, you'd like to get started in a minute or two, or?
I think just one more minute to be mindful of everyone's time.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. And then during the interim, we'd just like to ask all of our participants to mute their mics for right now, at least, so that we're able to at least have some good sound quality when we kick off the meeting. Thank you so much, everyone. Again, this is Scott Kuttner with the City of Santa Ana. You've joined the Santa Ana General Plan Community Outreach Roundtable discussion on Monday, December 21st. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us during this very, very hectic and busy holiday season. Our discussion tonight is a very important one, and so we're so grateful that you've taken time out to join us. And we'll be starting in approximately 1 minute at this point. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott.
And Min, I'll defer to you when you're ready to start.
Okay, well, we'll start in about 30 seconds.
Countdown. And we were going to try and, if possible, keep the meeting as close to an hour as we can, being mindful of the busy season, but we'll see how that goes.
Well, thank you, everyone, for joining city staff tonight on a Monday night. Again, we really appreciate your time and your input. Many of you have been with us for quite a number of months now, talking about and following closely the general plan's progress. As you are aware, the City Planning Commission in November have asked staff to review what we have done so far and go back and really work with the community and do additional outreach and for getting feedback and input on on EJ issues and working with the EJ communities. One of the big feedback that we received during this entire process is that due to COVID, we really should look at how we can best outreach to our community, not only looking at different platform, different technology, but how do we best get information out and how do we best reach out to our community in a way that we can get back information about what's going on in our community and make sure that we have a complete voice. So, from our perspective, our city staff have been working for the past almost 2 months now, looking at, reviewing some of the work that we have done, looking at some of the notes that we've taken throughout the process, what we heard. And tonight, what we'd like to do is to have a roundtable, and it is really a roundtable for us to discuss ideas. We didn't come empty-handed. As I mentioned, we looked at what we have heard and, try to come up with some of the strategies that could be responsive to the input that we received so far as a point of takeoff for discussion. But we also will be talking and really discussing as a group in terms of moving forward on how we can best reach out to our community by the city and with your help during this process and time so that we can help to continue to move forward with the general plan. We have our staff, various staff will be talking tonight about how to participate in this meeting as well as we'll be discussing. We will be taking notes on ideas and hopefully we can come to, there will be some strategies or some rising of ideas that we can follow up on. Our goal is to look at reaching out to the community the early portion of 2021 and continue our outreach so that we're able to complete that process and determine whether or not, what refinements needs to be made to the general plan before we go back to the hearing process, hopefully sometime in 2021. So with that, I don't want to take up too much time, but I want to thank you for joining us. And at this point in time, I'll ask Alyssa to go over some of the process on how you can participate. And then we'll move forward with our presentation of some information and our discussion. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. So there are 2 ways to participate. Melanie, do you want to go to the next slide? So you will be able to raise your hand if you want to make a comment or if you want to get one of our attention during the presentation. And also, if you want to type your question, you could type it in the chat box. And if any of you are dialing in, the way to raise your hand during the meeting will be to dial *9 if you want to raise your hand and speak. That way we can unmute you. Thank you, guys.
Are there any questions? We'll move right on. So most of you got a copy of the agenda and the purpose of today's meeting. So we really are about sharing ideas, potential outreach activities, and covering 4 particular things. One is the option of a survey of some type. And we're going to briefly go through a demonstration of a tool called Maptionnaire. And then we'd like to touch on the topic of environmental justice neighborhood meetings, and also a tool that we've been trying to work through, something called a scorecard for the EJ neighborhoods. And then importantly, is how to get the word out about surveys, meetings, et cetera, and how best to draw in the residents and the communities, the EJ communities. So after we go through our brief presentation, we'll have an open dialogue and welcome all your thoughts. And then from there, we hope to create a framework to move forward together and collaborate on communication. So just as a quick reminder, the October draft of the general plan is on the website. And again, the opportunity for us is, as we kick off the outreach, the next wave of outreach focused on the environmental justice communities, the opportunity to further refine these 17 elements. And of course, they still are very much based on our 5 values listed at the bottom here of culture, sustainability, health, education, and equity. So with that, I'll hand it over to Margarita to talk to us about what we heard and a couple of key points. You're muted. There you go.
Thank you, Melanie, and thank you again, everyone, for joining us. So we just want to run through and just emphasize that we're working on what we heard. The first point, the EJ community measure of success, we just wanted to emphasize that bringing together a representative sample of neighborhood leaders and advocacy groups is our threshold and our standard for success. While we know it's very important to reach out to all of the environmental justice neighborhoods, we also find strength in the rapport that we have with those of you on this call to be able to continue to keep and maintain that communication with a lot of the neighborhood representatives from the environmental justice areas. So that's the first point. We also recognize that we need more time for outreach notices. So what we are going to be doing this point forward is ensuring that we have that 2-week, outreach window of opportunity so that people have at least 2 weeks notice, so that it's not too long, too far away, but it's not also too close. So we will be working on that as a team. Third point, the enhanced multilingual platforms. We've heard a lot of great suggestions on how we can add value to a lot of community outreach and engagement opportunities with our neighborhoods in terms of the general plan and even with other projects that the city is working on. And so I think for the time being, we will definitely commit to trying as best as possible to locate like professional interpreters when we have the community forum type of events, so that the language support is provided. And in the meantime, whenever staff is needed to step up and to be able to provide that support, we'll go ahead and do that. Fourthly, the roundtable feedback with policymakers, making sure that it's shared. That's something that our executive director, Mintai, has continued to do. But we just wanted to emphasize that that will continue, in terms of the feedback that's shared tonight moving forward, especially with our new city council members on board. And lastly, all of the public comments that have been provided, including from this group, will be incorporated into refining the general plan document. So we just wanted to emphasize that that input will continue, and we'll continue to incorporate that in different ways as we move forward with this document. Thank you.
Thanks, Margarita. So at this point, we'd like to briefly walk through the conversation of surveys. So that's obviously one key tool to get feedback from residents. And in the EJ communities, we're looking at 32,000 residents or property owners combination. So while 85% plus of our community has internet access, so obviously there's some technology conduit there. We're very mindful that that's not all of our community. And so we anticipate a combination of a hard copy survey and then an electronic survey. And so for a moment, I'm gonna share the screen with Alyssa, and we're gonna walk through just real briefly a mock-up of the Maptionnaire tool. And again, this is really rough. Don't take it literally, but it's just to give a sense of the way this particular tool works and if it's a good fit for our EJ outreach efforts. So let's see.
Can you end your screen share? Thank you.
There we go. Thanks, Alyssa. So here you have it again. It's just a mock-up that the company did for us out of the kindness of their heart. So the idea would be we could open it up with a little conversation. Again, keep it simple, keep it informative, but real user-friendly. So that would be an intro page. We could also put the Spanish and the English videos on this intro page. And there's a little toggle at the bottom that you don't see in this feature here, but you can toggle it and click it to say Spanish or English. So it would definitely be at minimum bilingual. And then this particular next slide, or next page, if you will, could ask the basic question of, are you in an environmental justice neighborhood? And then there's a drop down here that would allow you to select the neighborhood you're in, just so we can keep track of who's participating and maybe where there needs to be more encouragement to participate. And you can also list if you don't happen to be in one of the EJ neighborhoods, you could note that there. And then there's a little room at the bottom for a map or some just some basic information to reinforce the subject. And again, this is a really rough mock-up. Go ahead. And then the next opportunity for a question, if we scroll to the top for a second, I can't quite see it, is in Santa Ana, there are essentially 10 priority areas that have been identified, those that have had the highest score, if you will, of things that need to be addressed to improve the quality of life in our communities, our EJ communities. So one scenario is you could click and ask, what's the one that's the most important to you, your family, for quality of life. And then another option is, is at the top of the screen now, is of the 10, what are your top 3? Could be ranked 1 through 3, and just sort of gets a sense for what's on people's minds, what of those characteristics, what's most important to them. And then if we continue on, then this particular survey feature allows you to, walks you through it a bit, but it's basically where are the environmental issues in your neighborhood. So you can click it to a particular location. And then the way this one happens to be set up is it gives you choices on, well, what's the particular issue, environmental justice issue in that at that location. And you can click on that, and or you can use the bottom part to narrate. And then the next feature, and it, again, these features may or may not be the ones we choose, but there's another one where you can identify an area. And you could say, you know, I've noticed there's just an awful lot of emissions or something in that area. And then we would work, if we would work with the person that puts together these surveys and create an area where you could actually write what the concerns are in that particular neighborhood and that section of the neighborhood, which this one happens to be in Henninger Park. Thanks, Alyssa. And again, the idea is to keep it simple and interactive, but this also provides an option that those that are interested could upload a photo that could show an image of an environmental justice concern in the neighborhood or something they'd like to share. And then typically with a survey, the last part would be tell us about yourself. And it would be a couple of demographic questions to get a better sense of who our participant is. So that's the basics of this particular tool. And we can tailor the questions as appropriate, but those were a sample of things. So. Okay, thanks, Alyssa. So with that, the next topic we wanted to touch on is the idea of the EJ neighborhood meetings.
Melanie?
So while we're
Melanie,
in
I'm sorry, Melanie, this is Scott. I'm so sorry to interrupt you, but
Yes.
I think Alan Wu raised his hand and maybe he had a question or something. And so perhaps we can unmute him so that he can, at this time, he can.
Well, we can take one question. I think our hope was to go through the couple of slides of presentation, but certainly we can
Okay.
pause for a quick question.
Alan.
I could wait, actually.
Okay.
I'm following the flow.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Alan.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Alan. So just be a couple more slides of information and then we can open up the gates of conversation. So again, the notion is that we have 21 neighborhoods that are in the environmental justice areas, and that we would group a couple of neighborhoods together and have a total of 6 neighborhood meetings. And again, we're looking at a virtual environment. And then we're still trying to work through it, but we're also looking at this thing we're calling a scorecard. And we took Henninger Park as a sample to try and help us think it through. As you can see, the green lines are the boundaries, in this case of Henninger Park. The darker lines around it are the census tracts. The environmental justice data is gathered by census tract. And then down at the bottom here, we pulled out census tract 1. And then we identified what are the environmental indicators and socioeconomic indicators that actually got them to be categorized as an environmental justice neighborhood. But this is not, it's a work in progress, because what we'd like to do as the next step further is actually look what are the issues within that neighborhood? What are the real actual demographics? Because just because it's got a high percentage here, say for instance, of solid waste, that doesn't mean that there's a solid waste facility in Henninger Park. It's part of this larger modeling thing. So we have a ways to go on that, but the intention is that we try to break it down for the neighborhoods for why am I in an environmental justice community and what should I be aware of, and just educate on that topic for everyone. So the last slide here is the big one, and that's getting the word out. So the tools that we do land on, be it surveys and the neighborhood meetings, what's key is we really are looking at that network we have in the community, working with our neighborhood associations, working with the school districts, community-based, community serving organizations, churches, and everyone here at the Roundtable to really work together to get the word out through all our different avenues, because we know you are in with the pulse of the community. Then we know we have these technology opportunities to get the word out. Our standard is at minimum to put what's called a Nixle community message out, and the city emails through neighborhood improvement and reach through there. We do the social media and always opportunities to broaden that, to have our Facebook releases connect to your organizations as well. Nextdoor, Instagram, do more, try out the radio reach, which we haven't done for a few years. And then of course, Channel 3 is always an option. And then to the right here, the direct, more direct, less technological options. And again, these are, if you will, a menu. In the past, we have mailed out hard copy flyers, informational flyers about information and meetings to the 32,000 in the environmental justice neighborhood. There's always posters and flyers put around town at laundromats and places where people gather, grocery stores. There's the traditional door hangers. There's mindfully looking for where there's kiosks for information boards and for each neighborhood. There's the lawn signs that they've been activating for as part of the COVID and the school district partnership with Latino Health Access. There's some door-to-door kinds of activities. There's pop-ups in the neighborhood. So there's a lot of different things we could do, but it's being mindful of what's the most effective, what can we do over the next couple of months and on, and what's in your experience and everyone's experience, what is the best use of our resources together. So at this point, we would like to open it up, and I will, the thought being that we could go back to the survey, and then maybe that's where Alan had a question, and we could start with that to get feedback on this notion of a survey.
Yes. My first reaction is wow, and what a great tool for neighborhood building. And I know that you've probably been working on this and trying to identify the resource for a while. But I just like to mention too, so that you are aware, that several neighborhoods have already been talking about similar things, about how our community, because of poor planning, hodgepodge planning, and the placing of unhealthy types of businesses in our neighborhood or transportation corridor, has eroded our neighborhood integrity. And Ruby just asked me to attend this thing at the last minute. But those neighborhoods run from where Logan is all the way to Santa Anita, down the trolley corridor, including Santa Anita, Artesia, Pilar, Lacey, and Logan, and that whole downtown and Bristol area. And those residents are part of the old Sano neighborhoods and old barrios, and they have a history of being have had policies that seem to have always eroded them. This too will help. However, because of COVID-19, our greatest tool has been the ability to be able to meet in person, to talk it out. And I think that residents will need additional training to use this device. Not everyone is technically advised. We've gotten good support, great support from the city neighborhood improvement staff, who's been helpful to help us bridge that and get the word out. So I think we already know those asthma contributing, those lead poisoning in our neighborhood, and we was wondering how to deal with it. And I think the type of confrontation, I think, arises when you don't have a plan and a planning process that involves residents, is that you would say, we don't want it, we want it out of here. And it may be a matter of seeing what we could do with a partnership that could arise through foundation, federal funding, if federal funding comes next year. And once we get out of this COVID-19, is there a way of restoring these neighborhoods who are under economic distress, who are under a lack of educational access, where job is critical for the health of those community, where the housings are deteriorated, but they're afraid to invite improvement because that might mean that their property value goes up and they would be gentrified, and the taxes will go up, and there's those kinds of fear that comes with improving a neighborhood, making a healthy environment, and all that. And I'm not complaining, I hope you understand. I'm just saying that the clarity of getting on the same place, of using this opportunity to provide these input and institutionalizing it in the general plan is very important. And they realize that, but they have felt kind of left out. Not because city staff didn't do their job and letting them know. They kind of get left out because they feel that some of the community advocates and some of the institutions with staff have more influence or are farther ahead. And I just kind of see that, well, you got to start somewhere. But now that you are coming out to the residents, I think part of that first process is really educating, providing with the success, the support to learn how to utilize this. And I think there's an awareness now that this is important, that this whole environmental justice, but from a policy implication standpoint, I don't think that's fully understood as to, well, if this is an issue that affects our health, what can we do about it? What is our option? And if so, who do we talk to do this? Otherwise, all you're going to get is, we don't like that. Move this junkyard over here. I mean, as if it was so easy to do that, right? So what I'm saying to you is, I think that the communication between planning for the future, what is, and how to get there from what is to a neighborhood of choice down the road, is that the residents fully understand the steps that will get there. And by saying we only want single family homes may not be feasible, given, you know, some of the opportunities. Like, you may not be able to get single family home along the trolley, but you might be able to get low income housing along the trolley. What supermarkets that feed into the neighborhood? Now, I want you to know that I'm not pushing those things, but I think that they will come out of some of the discussion. And I'm sorry for missing the first part, but I kind of surmise that where you're going is that you wanted to let us know that this tool is available. You want to encourage us using it. And I'm going to give that input back to Ruby and the Artesia Pilar and several other neighborhoods. And then I'm just wondering, how do we go about with the next step to help this along? And it's going to take a little while, and it'll be more of a challenge with COVID-19. I'm sorry for going on and repeating.
Thank you, Alan.
No
Thank you.
worries.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, so I would just clarify one thing, Alan, that we see this as a tool, as an opportunity, but at this point, it is a dialogue. So what I think I heard you say is that not everyone may need some education on how to use the tool. So that's the kind of feedback we want to hear, so that if we do roll this out, that we do it so that it's the most effective it can be. So we're still, it's sort of.
It's like a
captured it,
social
Melanie.
compact that Scott did several decades ago. It was a wonderful tool, but not everyone knew how to use it. As a planner, I wanted to jump on it right away. I understood the implication in terms of increasing economic stability in our neighborhood. And I think that once the community sees this, they will see a value in it. Then the next thing is, how do I use it? How do I get more groups of people, since I can't bring them to a meeting in person to see
Right.
it, you know?
Right. Right. That's the challenge. Do we have any, thank you for your thoughts on that, Alan, and maybe we can get a little bit more, if there's other folks that have some thoughts on the survey.
Yeah, I do. My name is Patricia Flores. I'm the current director with Orange County Environmental Justice.
Very good.
I had a couple of thoughts on the survey. For one, I don't believe soil-led contamination was directly listed as an option with environmental justice concerns, and considering like the extensive studies like our organization has done, as well as like the various news reports like in Univision, LA Times, like it's probably going to be on a lot of people's minds, but it won't be reflected unless it's on the survey.
Good point.
So I think
Thank
that's
you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Of course, yeah. And so another one would be healthcare accessibility, because I think like when we talk about environmental justice, we have to consider that different communities are going to be affected by these issues differently, right? And so considering that Santa Ana has an extensive undocumented population that doesn't have access to Medi-Cal, there's going to be a lot of people who are affected by soil lead contamination, water pollution, air pollution, who don't have access to healthcare to be able to confront those issues that have been affecting them medically, right? And so that's like an opportunity for the city to address that in the general plan in terms of environmental justice. Another question is specifically how to, like, along that theme of specifically engaging certain communities, right? Like, I think that there needs to be like specific outreach done to understand like the needs of undocumented people in terms of environmental justice, as well as homeless people who won't have the same access to like housing that will be able to protect them from any of the environmental justice issues, right? If we consider like soil lead pollution, that's going to be affecting people who are sleeping on the streets a lot more. And in addition, even I think like we have to consider this as well, like there's going to be communities that aren't a majority, but then nevertheless, we have to address the specific concerns. So for example, the indigenous community within Orange County, like the Akashiman and Tongva peoples who are native to this land, right? There is an indigenous community within Orange County and specifically within Santana that have sacred sites within the city limits, right? And so considering that there's extensive public land that's not being used by the city right now, I think there needs to be more communication directly with leaders within the indigenous community to consider how can certain parts of land be restored to them so that they can use them for cultural centers, medicinal plant growing, and other kinds of uses like that. I have additional comments about the neighborhood meetings, but if you want, we can wait until we get to that slide. I don't know how you all would like to do that.
Yeah, if we could, that would be great. Thanks so much. Is there anyone else that would like to bring up any thoughts
Yes,
on?
Melanie, I think Chris Holland has his hand raised. Let's see if we can unmute Chris. Hi, Chris.
Well, hello, Scott.
Welcome to our meeting.
Scott and I, we go back about 15 years on Cedar Evergreen project, and we have walked the property in that area for many years, along with the commander of that district. And I want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas. Couple of questions regarding the environmental issues. Can maybe Melanie, you can update us on the involvement of waste management and what is going on with waste management and educating the residents of the Cedar Evergreen and the rest of the areas regarding doing waste management and recycling.
Scott, Margarita, I think I'm going to lateral that to you guys.
Chris, we can definitely work with you on that with regard to enhancing community education in Cedar Evergreen so that the residents are able to access the services that are presently available through waste management, like for community cleanups and things like that, and to identify additional needs and things that we can do. Tonight, our discussion is really focused on identifying mechanisms or channels with which we can move ahead to enhance the outreach and the education around environmental justice topics. So we're not so much discussing individual topics as we are identifying constituent groups and channels and partnerships and collaboration with which we can accomplish this enhanced outreach. So with that said, I think that Margarita and we can connect with you, Chris, offline or after the meeting and identify ways that we can sort of enhance what we're doing out in Cedar and Evergreen, if that begins to answer your inquiry.
Okay, great, thank you. The other issue I've got is when notices, Melania, you mentioned that you're sending notices out to different residents in the Santa Ana area. And is it possible to incorporate owners of properties in those notices so we can be on top of what is being sent to our residents?
Let me see if I understand the question. So what I had referenced at one point was that we estimate 32,000 property owners and residents, occupants, are in our environmental justice areas. So those are basically 21 neighborhoods. And so if we go ahead and do that again for this communication, then if you're a property owner or if you're a resident in those neighborhoods, you will get a flyer.
Yes, Chris works with a whole group of apartment owners in the Cedar Evergreen area. And so Chris, the owners of all the buildings basically in Cedar and Evergreen would receive the notification as we move forward. You, as a point of contact among the apartment owners in Cedar Evergreen, were invited to participate tonight so that we can kind of get your feedback. But as we launch the broader strategy, the owners of all the apartment buildings in the neighborhood in that particular area would be informed.
Oh, okay, very good. The next question that I've got is the community policing in the Cedar Evergreen area. Though we have, I think, stabilized the crime and the gang activity, the graffiti level has increased substantially. And I was wondering, is going out there, and I'm using the Santa Ana app and graffiti to get it removed, but it is ongoing. I certainly understand the current situation and the constraints, or I should say the ability of the police department to help in certain areas with all this going on.
Chris?
Can be any focus on the Cedar Evergreen area, because there is gang activity there?
So Chris, we can double back with you again, sort of probably offline, not during this meeting, to do a really good baton pass with the new police commander for field operations. They've had like a change of their team leaders regarding the special enforcement team and field operations to kind of get them reacquainted with the leadership group at Cedar and Evergreen to see if we can enhance the work that they're doing in this particular area. We would prefer to kind of connect with you offline though on that so that we can make as much headway as we can on this environmental justice kind of discussion tonight, if that's okay.
Okay, I'll give you a call.
Yes. Thank you so much, Chris.
Thank you.
I see that Erica Gonzalez has her hand raised. Erica?
And Erica, just to caveat, hopefully your comments are regarding the survey, and if not, then we'll keep moving along to some of the other to the neighborhood outreach.
Hi, Erica. Welcome to our meeting.
Go ahead, Erica. Are you unmuted? We can't hear you.
Bluetooth disconnected.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Is that better?
Erica.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yes.
please go ahead.
Yes,
Go ahead,
I said
Erica.
I just wanted to add the sentiments of the first two callers. And I also wanted to add that I would like to see a little more details on the environmental justices, especially because a lot of folks, being that it is such a new term, a lot of people don't really know what the definition of an environmental justice is to begin with. So I think if we were to put on the little drop down underneath, like, I mean, you and I might know what diesel emissions are, but to like the, average Joe, they're not going to know what that is. So I would like to see maybe layman's terms and a little bit more information and details on that. And then I know you said it was going to be bilingual, but I would like to point out that we do have a large Vietnamese population and Cambodian population. So eventually I would like to see that be trilingual, not just bilingual, because we do have, that is quite a large population of ours. And then just as far as getting it out, I think this might be for the meetings though, but I'll save it for when we get to that slide.
Thank you.
Thank you, Erica. Thank you so much.
So if
it looks like, I'm sorry, Melanie, we do have someone else who raised their hand, but I'll defer to you. It looks like Patricia Flores raised her hand.
Patricia, since you've spoken once before, do you mind if we move on to the next topic?
Yeah, that's all right for now. I was just going to suggest that we add links for more information, for example, to existing articles on environmental justice issues in Santa Ana. That could be an option to provide more information to people who want to learn more when they're going through the survey.
Appreciate that.
Excellent. And I just, Melanie, I apologize just for interrupting you just for 1 second. Melanie cited a statistic at the early part of our discussion that 86% of the adults basically in these areas have access to the internet. And so we just very, very recently ran those statistics and we were pleasantly surprised. We obtain our statistics from Esri. It's like an ArcGIS product, essentially. That's the statistic, that's the source of the statistics to the extent that you have any questions about that. we're really encouraged by that. Melanie mentioned, we know that we still need to do a hard copy, like a paper survey for people. But I wanted to just mention that to the extent that those of you have questions about the source of the data, where it came from. Back to you, Melanie.
Very good. I'm mindful of the time a little bit, but we obviously the whole point of the meeting is to get feedback from everyone. But if you don't mind, let me move on to allow for the next topic as well for your thoughts and your suggestions. So again, this meeting is about getting your feedback on how we can best interact with the neighbors, the community within these areas that are in pink on the map. So again, we're looking at grouping a couple of neighborhoods together, maybe with similar issues, and having virtual meetings. And at those virtual meetings, we would potentially use something like this, a scorecard or something, to further refine, as someone earlier said, to put it in layperson's terms, to break down what is environmental justice. That's really our challenge, is to create a program and a presentation to set the foundation for education, and then open it up for everyone's concerns or in their neighborhood. So with that, does anyone would anyone like to ask a question or make a suggestion on this particular topic of meetings and scorecards?
I mostly had a question about like how are these meetings going to be conducted? Is there going to be opportunity for feedback from residents or like specific policy recommendations from residents, things like that?
So the feedback, just like the surveys, right? We typically at these kinds of meetings, especially since they'll be virtual, we'll have an opportunity for either doing some small surveys through the meeting. We'll direct them how to access, if we do have an electronic maptionnaire. And then the other thing that's important that we'll highlight is what's in our existing draft general plan, particularly the programs that do address some of these issues, and have everyone be more informed about what those are and what they mean and how they can improve the quality of their life. Be it that we're going to have an environmental educational portal where folks can go for data about their neighborhood, or be it that we were planning to change a zoning code to eventually create better buffers between industrial uses and residential uses, or incentivize for those industrial uses to go clean. So there's actions like that we want to take the opportunity in these meetings to share that with the residents and let them provide suggestions on that, help to refine those or add to it. Does that
Melanie,
answer your question?
Melanie,
Yeah.
looks
Oh,
looks
sorry,
like.
go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I just had a follow-up to that. That does answer my question fairly well. The first one is just to uplift Erika's previous point, to make sure that there's a multilingual interpretation for those meetings, including Vietnamese and Cambodian.
Right.
And then second point, to see what are ways that people who don't have internet access can interact in the same way, beyond the surveys, right? Because I think the surveys are helpful, but being able to give specific feedback on like ways to remediate these issues, it doesn't seem like it has that format within just the survey. So there need to be additional means for people without Wi-Fi.
And that's where we really appreciate everyone that's at the table here, what your suggestion might be, because that is the challenge in a COVID environment. Ideally we'd have small focus groups, we'd get together. So that's where we're looking for ideas to fill the gap on.
Melanie, this is Alan. Before I knew about this meeting, we've been meeting with Councilman Hernandez, and taking him for a tour of the barrio neighborhoods, Logan, Lacey, Artesia Pilar, and Santa Anita, all along the trolley line. We share a common history in terms of going back to the old barrios that's where we had to live. And then the city kind of came out to where we were. And in our neighborhoods, the junkyards were placed there. The car assembly and all that. So I think this would be a good group because they're all the neighborhood leaders. They all have to share history. They all want to do something, and they're at that talking point now of looking at those commonality. And instead, and I'm mentioning this because this is one way to avoid, well, let's put that in this neighborhood and we don't have to worry about ours. You know, you have sort of like this beanbag cushion chair. You're fighting over where to put something, and it deteriorates the other neighborhood. And there might be a better way. I'm sorry, I don't mean to say a better way. By bringing these groups together, they could kind of understand someone else's point of view from their neighborhood and still work on something that would be universally beneficial for all the neighborhood groups and the outside political groups that have policy change kinds of thing. And I do see that there needs to be an integration because sometimes the neighborhood values and priority don't really match up, and it's kind of ignored by the greater policy issues in terms of planning and all that. And so that leaves us suffering again.
Alan, so
Yeah.
we saw, we really appreciated the extensive note that you put in the chat, and we're
Okay, thank
taking notes tonight, and we will follow up with you to sort of see how we can sort of make this all have some continuity between these efforts. So we've made note of your comment. We're just, in the interest of time, we're just trying to capture as many people's comments as possible. So I really apologize. Marta Rodriguez from the Willard neighborhood, you had your hand raised.
Hi, Scott. This is Marta Rodriguez. Yeah, I've worked in the Willard neighborhood for the past 5 years and gotten to know some of the residents. And if I can chime in for the Korean neighborhood, they're mostly from the High Tower Senior Center on Flower. A lot of times they would come in and that was their only language. And through signs and, you know, just being able to communicate with them in other ways, I was able to provide them resources either for food or whatnot, or places to call for translators. But Korean is also another language. I was also wondering if with the flyers and communications that were sent out, if, you know, with Willard having 10,000 population just in that community, are they included in that 32,000? Would that mean then that the other 20 neighborhoods have just the 22?
Well, not every, so the mailer went out to each household, right? Not to each resident. So, so there are fewer than 10,000 households in Willard.
Households.
That's all. Yeah.
And so they went out to the senior center as well?
Yes, to the households.
And all of Willard is not it doesn't look like on the map in the environmental justice area,
It's just
right?
part of
So
it.
it would have just
Martha.
been the portion that's in the census tract that's closer to Civic Center that would have been outreach to.
Okay.
Okay,
Excellent.
thank you.
You're welcome. It looks like Carla Juarez, you have your hand raised. Melanie and the team are here to.
Yes, thank you, Scott. Melanie, I called you last week asking for a copy of the report for the Hettinger Park to specify what elements are specifically the ones that are affecting us. So I'm still waiting for that report. I also wanted to, in regards to reaching out to people in the neighborhood, the people that we're trying to reach out to are the ones that are missing in this table. I looked through the website because this meeting is not under the general plan meetings and events. I had to reach out to you guys to be invited, even though that I have voiced my concerns in regards to the environmental justice and the general plan. So, I mean, I want to know, no, I don't care to know. Like, you guys need to, I don't know how you guys are selecting the leaders, but people are missing in this table. Like the exact people that don't speak English are missing here. People that have troubles or don't have internet are missing here. So I think those are the best people that could tell you how is best way to reach them because they have the answers. Obviously, you guys can reach us, or we can reach you in my example, in order to be involved. But we need to look around and ask who else is missing the table. And that was my comment. Thank you.
Thanks, Carla. So as it relates to the information for Henninger Park, you can see that the scorecard that we're working on does relate to Henninger Park. And I've forwarded, I think, yourself and Janelle some information from our website to try and begin to provide the information that you seek. So be happy to work with you one-on-one and sort through that. And I'm glad you're here to speak up on the folks that aren't at the table. Again, we reached out to those that had been part of the roundtable before, and we apologize that we didn't include you on this most recent invite. So we're glad you're here. We're glad you heard about it, and we appreciate your comments.
And I think that, Carla, we anticipate an ever widening circle of contacts moving forward. We're building momentum at this point around these topics so that we're able to collect and gather as much authentic information on a grassroots level as we possibly can. And so with that, we have a few others who have their hand raised. Erica Gonzalez, I see your hand is raised.
Yes, hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Already. Okay, thank you, Scott. Yeah, I honestly do want to again echo what Carla was saying, although I do see a lot of faces on here that I'm happy to see. There are a lot of people missing from this table. I've been working Santa Ana politics for about 2 years now, and I can tell you, if you don't get out there and door knock and talk to people and make that contact, physical contact, COVID or not, you are not going to hear the most vulnerable populations that are out there in the city. And that's just the cold hard facts. Let's be honest here. You guys were not doing a great job of community outreach prior to COVID. So although I like seeing that we're going to be having 6 meetings for 17 neighborhoods that's not good enough. I think each of these neighborhoods deserves to have its own meeting, because like that one other representative was saying, Willard alone has 10,000 residents. We have a city of over 300,000 people. This is not sufficient. Like this doesn't cut it. I appreciate the baby steps because we are making moves forward, but we need to take giant steps. This is not a time for us to be, making, like I said, these are baby steps. I want to see more concrete progress. I want to see more faces at the table that deserve spots at this table that normally wouldn't be at this table. So with that being said, yeah, if we don't get out there and door knock and get folks talking to people on the streets, then like I said, you're going to leave out a very large vulnerable population that deserves, they're the most vulnerable, so they deserve a say. Thank you. Thank you,
Erica. Thank you so much. Melanie, if you'd like, we do have a couple other questions. Melanie, if it's okay at this point, or?
Sure. Okay. It's just about 6 o'clock. I'd say at least a couple more. Yes.
Sandra Pena, you had your hand raised. Did you have a question for Melanie and the team?
Hi, Sandra.
Hi, how you doing, everybody? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay, great. My suggestions for outreach were, I've mentioned a couple times that it would be great to have bulletin boards at our city Santa Ana parks and bike trails, because people are, out a lot of families, a lot of working class families use the parks. And especially now with COVID, folks are, getting out more. So they're definitely making more use of our parks and bike paths. If we could have a bulletin board or two at every single park and bike path, I think that would really help get the word out about a lot of things that the city is doing. So flyers are still a real old school way of getting information out in our working class communities. A good example of this is the El Toro Meat Market on First near Pacific. We call it jokingly Santa Ana's oldest online, like email, right, board, because that's how folks for generations have found out about, places that are open for rent, jobs, opportunities, and such. Also, churches also often have bulletin boards, weekly bulletin boards. Almost every church does. So it'd be great to, get a list of all the churches in Santa Ana and, Buddhist temples and, all the denominations, and make sure that we have these notices in all their bulletin boards. Also, it's really important that we use infographics, both online and in those flyers, because people really take in complicated information, I think, best visually, especially our communities. So I just wanted to convey those suggestions.
Thank you, Sandra. Thank you so much. Melanie, if it's okay with you, we have a couple other people have their hand raised. Melanie, is that okay?
Yes,
Yeah.
please.
Julie Castro Cardenas, we've got you unmuted. Are you ready?
Yes, Brady, thank you for the presentation. This is great work, and it's exciting that we're getting information from all sorts of areas in the city. It's good to see some of the familiar faces. Something that's pretty effective in the downtown, reaching folks that are a bit harder to reach or aren't into the whole email blasts. For sure, flyers, and they can be small, even business size, so that they're a little more cost effective. And then something else that's been effective for us in the downtown has been using WhatsApp. That tends to be more of the Latino-based mobile app. It's still connected to a social media platform, but it's something that they refer to. So door-to-door, flyers, business-size cards, and the WhatsApp, I think, is most effective.
Thank you.
Thanks, Julie.
Thank you so much. Patricia Flores, you have your hand raised as well.
Yeah.
Did you have a?
Yeah, I have a couple direct suggestions.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. In terms of engaging people who don't have internet access, I want to add on, and also I want to uplift Eric and Carla's comments as well. But in terms of engaging people without internet access, I think that means that the surveys have to be a bit more extensive. So, going over like soliciting direct comments about policy recommendations or ways to remediate issues, direct sources of pollution that residents are seeing in their neighborhoods. If it's not safe to have folks gather in a physical space, of course, because of COVID, then that means like those other options need to be a little bit more thorough. We, like our organization, OCEJ, did conduct surveys in 2016, 2017 that went door to door throughout Santa Ana to document environmental justice issues. And a lot of times those questions can be phrased around particular issues that allow the issue to be explained in ways that don't use the same terminology that might not be accessible to residents, right? But if door-to-door is also not safe, then like having text messages services and phone call surveys as well, or mail-in surveys. I think the school district has had a pretty good system in terms of having mass multilingual phone calls and text messages. But that's of course limited to people who have children in SAUSD. But yeah, all those other measures that don't have access to virtual meetings, I think all those need to be expanded a lot more.
Thank you. Thank you, Patricia. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Melanie, I'll defer to you at this point. I think we have one additional hand raised.
I'll go ahead. Go ahead, Scott.
It looks like Julie Castro Cardenas just has a final kind of comment. Julie, hi.
Yes, I thought of two other ones that were successful. The Zumba community, Herbalife community, that's a good way of spreading information. And also the local bakeries or coffee shops, 7-Elevens.
Right.
Awesome. Thank
Sounds
you,
good.
Julie. Thank you so much. Okay,
Sounds good.
back to you, Melanie.
All right. So I guess I would offer that anyone who's on the call tonight, feel free to email us or call to give any further feedback. We will have the recording of this meeting posted on the website. And I think we've got some really good ideas and some feedback tonight, but I think there's a long way to go. And there's some voices that haven't spoken up. So if you do have some things that you want to share, feel free to reach out. So Margarita, did you have an opportunity to take some, have some key notes for moving forward?
Yes, I can share my screen, or I can just speak on the notes that I took. Melanie?
Okay, if you'd like to share, I can switch gears.
Okay.
Okay.
I have been actively listening to everyone, so appreciate it. Let's see. Okay, here we go.
And I just want to, this is Scott again. I just want to acknowledge that at the conclusion of you sharing the summary, Margarita, it looks like at least Leonel Flores has his hand raised, Melanie,
Okay.
and there may be others as well, but we'll hold off on having Leonel speak until Margarita has a chance to kind of go through
Right.
these. Thank
So
you.
Margarita, I see that you've got extensive notes here. Maybe you do want to just verbally highlight some of them then?
Sure. So I think if I were to summarize it, there are a lot of recommendations when it comes to how we do things in terms of what the process is, and that we need to do a better effort on including those who have very limited computer or internet access. We need to make a greater effort in doing that. So, although it'd be preferable to meet in person, we just need to delve more into, the survey. And so by enhancing that survey, what that means is including more like soil, lead contamination, including that component, the topic of healthcare accessibility, figuring out a better way to incorporate the voices of the undocumented, and those who are homeless, when it comes to environmental justice, how can we do that? Looking at some of the indigenous communities in Santa Ana, how can we enhance or at least include them in the conversation of environmental justice, especially if there are sacred lands, in their areas. The other one had to do with just really breaking it down, using community-friendly language that people will be able to draw interest in completing it. In terms of the language, making it sure it's not just in English, Spanish, and Vietnamese, but have us think about Cambodian and Korean languages, because there are like many languages that are spoken here with the families in Santa Ana. Also, making sure that we're looking for solutions, or we are looking for solutions from the community when it comes to how to address environmental justice, bringing groups together, such as those that are being affected by the streetcar project, as an example. And then there were some great recommendations on the community networks that exist right now that we can tap into further, like the Zumba, the Herbalife, as Julie had mentioned, the bakeries, the coffee shops, looking at having even more meetings, not just the six thing, giving thought to having, one or at least smaller groupings, so that each neighborhood has an opportunity to have their own space to dialogue about this. And I think that covered most of the points. So thank you.
Thank you.
So I'll stop sharing my screen.
Okay.
Melanie, at this point, it looks like Leonel Flores has his hand raised, as does Erica Gonzalez.
Okay.
Those are the two that I see. Are we ready to?
I think we can take two more comments if that's all right with everyone else that's on the meeting.
Okay, great.
If you need to pull away.
Leonel, we just sent you the message to unmute. Please go ahead, Leonel.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for letting me give my comment. Basically, I just wanted to voice something that Adolfo messaged in the chat in regards to outreach and networking and stuff. I think it's really important the city should start working with the school district because they have expressed already multiple times that they feel like they're kind of being left out, and they have a very, very extensive network that I think the city could benefit from. And they signed a resolution in November where they're committing themselves to help with these environmental justice issues. So basically, they're there for the city to collaborate with them. But I think you also need to take the initiative and make sure you take advantage of that network that's available, because you could pretty much mail out to every student in the district. So that hopefully, I would think like some of the people mentioned flyers, they can get out hopefully a lot better to a lot larger population. And who knows what other connections or alternatives they could provide for the city as well.
Thanks, Londell. We've been in conversation with the school district, and we look forward to tapping into the suggestions that you've mentioned and working with the school district as best we can. Thank you.
Melanie, we have a few other people who've raised their hands. Erica Gonzalez, I see your hand is raised. I just want to make sure you had an additional comment that you'd like to make.
Yes, I did. Thank you, Scott. I just wanted to bring up the community benefits agreements. I really think that those would be beneficial to really outlining and keeping the community's vision included with the general plan. And I would like to see these created with a lot of the smaller organizations like Vela, for example, in the Lacey neighborhood, who's fighting against the plan that was recently approved, that luxury apartment building. So just seeing more community benefits agreements prior to the land being sold off to these developers and the planning being before the planning stages begin, so that we can ensure that the community vision is included.
Okay, and I know that we did take note of the new executive director at Accord as an example, and we've updated our records to reflect that. So thank you for that suggestion, Erica. Melanie, if it's okay with you, we just have one more hand raised.
I think one more hand, and then we'll be, if we can be, we'll just be respectful of folks' time.
Okay, so Patricia Flores, it looks like your hand is raised. So if you have an additional comment or some closing comments, we would really appreciate it.
Before, I was just gonna add that if Patricia's had a little bit of time to share, and you've been great comments. I just wanted to give a last call for anyone else that hasn't spoken to speak up. This last opportunity.
Yeah, we don't have any other hands raised.
Perfect.
Actually.
Patricia, floor's all yours.
Yeah, one, I mentioned in the chat to make sure that youth engagement is a part, and two, are there going to be additional roundtables where we can then engage on the future drafts of the general plan, talk about specific environmental justice components?
So this particular roundtable intention was to be really on brainstorming on outreach tools. We definitely have opportunities to continue the other roundtables. Like there was one that we worked specifically on the lead contamination, and your organization was a big part of that with the healthcare agency. And we've also had a roundtable that was a little more focused on some of the issues in the Madison Park area. So there's definitely that opportunity to continue those smaller dialogues, topic oriented.
I think it'll be important to keep those scheduled going forward, just so that we can continue to be in dialogue about the future drafts.
Sure, happy to connect with you on that. Thanks. Well, with that, really appreciate everybody's thoughts today, and we'll need to go back and see what we can organize and find the resources to do. As all of you that do outreach can appreciate, everything takes resources, takes time, takes funding, et cetera. So we'll go back and see what we can pull together for our outreach program to be as thorough and complete and grassroots. And with that, I'm not sure if Min is still with us. If Min wanted to give any closing remarks.
Of course, thank you, Melanie. And I've taken a lot of notes along with our staff tonight. I was doing a lot of just active listening, and I heard a lot of great ideas about how do we continue to reach out to our community, especially those, as I think one of our listener here was mentioning, those that are not here at the table are the ones that needs to be reached. And we hear you loud and clear. I think there's a lot here for us to digest, and we'll continue to look at ways we can better reach out to our community. But thank you for being with us tonight. I think this is a big step moving forward. We certainly have a great foundation to start from, but we know that we'll continue to get a lot more information. I think, the other suggestion, the other takeaway I get from this is that we need to make sure that the outreach is comprehensive, but also put out in a way that our community can respond and understand what the issues are. The infographic is a great suggestion. Really appreciate that. And I think, having access to some new tools, even though they're over the internet, I think will help us to get to a good chunk of folks. But I think the school district, from the perspective of getting to the grassroots, will be very helpful. So we will also be looking for your assistance as well. And so, hopefully that we can reach out back to you when we're ready to do outreach and get some assistance, just helping us getting to folks that may not hear from us. We, although want to be comprehensive, we know that we won't get to everyone. So we'll be looking for help from you as well to get to the next step. Thank you for participating. Have a safe holiday season. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and we'll talk again in 2021. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Really appreciate it. Bye.